Welcome to the Savvy Leader Podcast, the place for growth, learning, and inspiration for leaders just like you. I'm your host, Kristen Gallatin, and each week we will dive into the grit, grace, and gratitude it takes to become the savvy leader you were always meant to be. Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's edition of the Savvy Leader Podcast. I am so glad that you chose to join me today. I'll be pulling another excerpt from my audio journal, and this one is titled The Unveiling, Trading My Shield for My True North. This one's all about vulnerability, and as a strong, independent woman, I've spent the better part of my life believing that control was the ultimate superpower. I'm talking about that deep-seated, white-knuckle need to manage every outcome, every perception, and admitting my desire for that control, even to myself, was a vulnerability I didn't dare touch, not with a 10, not with a 20-foot pole, my friends. For me, vulnerability was just never in the cards, and it felt like a 4-letter word: weak. But now, at age 54, I'm finding the courage to set down that shield, and I want to talk to you today about why that just very well may be the most courageous thing that I and you could ever do. For decades, the foundation of my defense mechanism was the power of presentation. Oh my gosh, I talk about it all the time, how I present myself in any given situation. And despite a complicated relationship with my dad, this was one of the few lessons that I learned from him. It was this concept of presenting yourself. He excelled at it. I knew, even as a young child, that I could count on him to present well. He provided strong, clear words, both verbal or written, a polished appearance that was appropriate for the setting, smart ideas. He knew how to command a room, and people took notice. I grabbed hold of this in my own adult life and discovered that if I could present myself, I felt so empowered. It was the ultimate magic trick. No matter the internal chaos, the fear, the insecurity, the mess, I could wrap it all up in a neat, impressive little package, and the people around me, none the wiser. This presentation skill became my shield. I never just got ready for the day. I carefully selected items to wear and ways to do my hair that would support the presentation of myself throughout the day. And if need be, I would just change my clothes if I was heading to different situations or settings or events, and in the car if necessary. And I know I am not the only one. You cannot tell me you've never done that, though I might be the only one that accomplished it while driving. Shh. That'll be our secret. Nevertheless, my professionalism, my appearance, my meticulously curated life, this was my buffer from pain, my padding against negative judgment, if you will. It also beautifully soothed the perfectionist in me. I would use my own hypercritical internal voice as a grindstone to keep that shield razor sharp. This idea of truly being seen is where the shield does its absolute best work. Honestly, even now, the word vulnerability feels so cringy to me. It just seems to grate on my long-held concept of courage. It wears it away. And as the always, I got it girl, lack of courage just never felt like an obstacle for me. I realize now, though, that the kind of courage I tapped into was actually grit and unshakable defiance, rebellion, or a stubbornness to keep my emotional vulnerabilities safely tucked away. That grit served me very well professionally. It allowed me to push through obstacles that most couldn't. But it was a kind of doing courage and not really a kind of being courageous. Let me give you an example. I absolutely love to sing. I always feel so fortunate that I got to grow up in the 80s surrounded by incredible rock music, heavy metal, and even love songs, you guys. I used to sing solos in high school choir, and nowadays I belt it out at church and at parties. I'll pull people together. I even got an entire bar to sing. It's 5 o'clock somewhere one time. It was so much fun. But do you think that I have ever actually participated in karaoke? Nope. Why? Because the idea of being in the spotlight and singing for all to see and hear is so mortifying that it shrinks me down. Singing is just so personal, and I want so badly to not suck at it that I just have not yet found the courage to put that part of myself on public display. It's on my bucket list though, so stay tuned. But that's the difference, you guys. My career grit lets me stand on a stage and speak to 1,000 people. My emotional defiance keeps me from standing up and singing a 3-minute song for 20 people? The latter just feels so much more personal and then more vulnerable. I just can't handle it. Not yet. My shield of self-reliance wasn't just about protecting me from criticism, though. It acted as a barrier as well, a barrier to emotional connection and love. I showed my love best through thoughtful gifts and curated offerings. I loved shopping for people. Well, I love shopping, period. It's kind of a therapy for me. But that warm, fuzzy feeling I got when I thought I selected just the right gift or item for someone special to me, especially if it was going to be an unexpected giving moment, the anticipation of the giving part, it actually felt selfish instead of selfless. That was because those tangible items were safe, weren't they? They held a clear, quantifiable value, and they allowed me to express my feelings without having to open the door to my real inner world. Using actual words to articulate my true feelings, to say things like, I love you wasn't too hard, but how about I need you, or even I want you in my life. These were some serious vulnerabilities I rarely, if ever, afforded anyone. I did my very best to be encouraging while we were raising our family, though, but I allowed myself to believe that they knew how much I cared about them because of the way that I cared for them. My husband can certainly attest to my inability to share my affection through words. The right words would seem to escape me, and opportunities would often pass in silence. That silence was the shield. It was working. It was protecting me from the risk of putting my heart on the line, even for the people I loved and trusted the most. I held on to the false sense of value derived from material offerings, and my fierce independence, this self-reliance I thought was strength, was actually a wall that was blocking real emotional intimacy. Looking back, I wish so desperately that I had encouraged more, that I shared more pride for my family and joy in our life. I wish I had loved more openly and, most importantly, allowed more love in. Because the thing about a shield is that while it was really good at keeping the pain out, it prevented some serious connections from getting in. But there was a profound shift in my life, and that was when I began searching for God. I do a blog post on my journey to Christ. You should check it out on my blog site. But this journey toward releasing my shield has become deeply connected to my reliance on God. If I'm constantly trying to hide my flaws, my mess, my chaos from the world, how could I ever stand before God? Because the truth is, you guys, there's no hiding anything from God. He sees it all, the faults, the chaos, and yet His love remains. This discovery of His unconditional love for me, faults and all, opened the door just a little bit. And also it forced me to examine my own heart. I refer to this as the heart of the matter, because my fear of human judgment became so absurd when contrasted with a divine love that accepted me, completely me. Being constantly aware of where my heart is at in any given situation really, really helps to keep my priorities and values top of mind. And when the shield does start to fall away, what's left is going to be this authentic self, grounding that self in faith and leaning on God's love really makes the exposure so much less terrifying. Okay, I've got to admit, I have some freedoms that many of you may not. Because I am a full-time RVer, I have a literal advantage in practicing vulnerability. We're in solitude out here on the road, so I get to reflect more on myself and my life differently than I ever could before. But also, the people that I see face to face are often around for such a limited amount of time that if I say or do something that I think is stupid, or worse yet, if my dog is being naughty, I can rest assured that after a week or two, I'll probably never see that person again. A completely low stakes environment, you guys, which is why it's a nice, safe place for me to start this journey. I do believe, though, that this concept can still hold true with people we see more often. Our coworkers and our peers, they're still only in our lives for a season, not our whole life. And sometimes, you guys, making peace after a disagreement with someone we care about, someone who is pivotal in our lives, that makes the vulnerability of it all so much more worth it and the connection so much deeper. So I'm going to ask you this, because I say this to myself a lot more often now. What's the worst that could happen? What is it? What's the worst that can happen if we were to find a way to articulate our authentic voice that doesn't put people on guard? What if? What if we were able to share our ideas with our peers constructively? Better yet, what if the words of the people we respected and cared about didn't hurt us because we were so steadfast in our resolve that we could hear and respect the ideas of others without letting them dismantle our core self? What's the worst that could happen? You share an idea, you share a thought, you be open about your feelings. Vulnerability is not about being susceptible to harm. It's actually understood as emotional exposure, risk, and even uncertainty, but it's crucial to know it is not a sign of weakness. It is a courageous choice to be transparent about one's true feelings and inner self. It's actually the ultimate act of courage, a willingness to risk being seen without the armor. So, how do we begin moving forward, trying to be more vulnerable and authentic? I believe that it starts with our brain. Though vulnerability feels emotional, our brain can help us digest that in such a better way and repurpose it for something so much more powerful. I want to share a technique I learned in hypnosis therapy, and it's called the timeline. In this session, I visualized my memories as a timeline out ahead of me. And as I moved along this timeline, I would notice pain points. These were painful memories that brought me anxiety and hurt. As I reached them on my timeline, I would pick them up and take them out of the timeline. I would hold them in my hands, look them over, and reflect on the memory. And I would ask myself, what did I learn from this experience, and how have I grown because I have this in my life? The amazing thing is that the memory is still there. I don't want to lose my memories. They're part of my story, but that intense, painful feeling associated with it has begun to dissolve. By extracting the lesson from the painful memory, I've been able to integrate the experience as a part of my strengths rather than letting it remain a source of pain. Yes, I turned it into a constructive part of my growth. Instead of dwelling on the sorrow I felt, I can now learn and move forward, keeping the memory, but understanding what it means far better. Through practices like this, along with meditation and leaning on my faith, I'm slowly moving toward allowing the authentic me to surface and experience what it truly feels like to lower that shield. My blog and even this podcast are part of the journey. It's a deliberate practice in self-exposure that strengthens my resolve. I don't want to have to wait for a fight to find my voice. I simply want to be heard. I want my respectful opinions, my honest self to fall upon the world like gentle snowflakes, not harsh and frigid, but thought-provoking ideals that open minds and hearts to new perspectives. I want to open the door, not kick it down. Being on the road affords me the solitude to honestly reflect and take the intentional steps that I need to begin the journey of discovering my true north self and giving the delicate, imperfect version of myself, whom I've kept so hidden, the chance to shine. This is a moment of revelation, and a true act of courage is just the beginning. All right, it's your move. I've got a few steps that you could take too to embrace your own vulnerability. If you're ready to set down your shield, try some of these. Cultivating self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same love and kindness you would offer the bestest of friends. Examine your heart and ask yourself, what are my true motivations and values in this moment, and how do they align with the situation? Try out that timeline technique. Look at some old pain points and ask yourself, what did I learn from those experiences, and how have I grown because of it? Ask this question. When facing an opportunity to speak your authentic voice, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen if you share your honest opinion with respect? Take small, courageous steps. Practice vulnerability by taking some minor risks. Share a true feeling, offer an honest opinion. You can do this without needing approval. And lastly, what is one small act of emotional honesty that you could commit to today to begin the unveiling of your own true north self? I'd love you to post your thoughts in the comments. I love your feedback. Thank you for joining me today. I really hope that this has been as inspiring for you as the journey is for me. Thanks so much, you guys. Till next time. Thanks Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Savvy Leader Podcast. Be sure to check the description below for any links or resources we mentioned today. And for even more inspiration and tools to help you on your own leadership journey, come on over and join the conversation in the Savvy Leaders Lounge. That's savvyleaderslounge.com. And we'll see you next time.